This is the new 2024 Lexus GX 550. It's the same as the 2025 Lexus GX 550 for the most part, and it's also the same as the new Toyota Land Cruiser. And some people have said that this is better than the new Land Cruiser, and I'm inclined to agree. I think it puts the new Land Cruiser in a bit of an awkward spot, especially because the Toyota 4Runner is new for 2025 as well. Now, I've already driven the new Land Cruiser, but I was very excited to get behind the wheel of the GX because the GX has a couple things that make this whole package that much more compelling, and the price doesn't hurt either. Welcome to Out Motorsports, the channel for cars as you are. My name is Jake, and let's just get right into it. So first things first with the GX, the drivetrain on this. This is going to be the single biggest difference, and we'll talk about why I like this so much more in the driving portion of this in just a second. But where the Land Cruiser gets a 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, the GX gets a 3.4 liter turbocharged V6, and it's not a hybrid. Now, the reason I care about the hybrid part is because of the packaging. More on that in just a second, but it makes 349 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque put through a 10-speed torque converter automatic and a standard 4-wheel drive transfer case-based system with high and low range. Now, this one you might notice has the chunky 18-inch tire and wheel package. This is an Overtrail Plus, which means it's the most off-road version of the GX, and that means you get a locking rear differential along with the standard locking center differential, which helps if you're going further off-road. The other thing you get with the Overtrail is going to be a cross-linked hydraulically adjustable suspension. So we've seen this on past GXs and Land Cruisers and LXs, and what that does is it lets the GX manage its side-to-side movement, helps with body control, and crucially, it's going to change the ride over the suspension that the Land Cruiser offers. Now, the benefit to that V6 does come in its drivability, but it also comes in the packaging because, like I mentioned, when this is not a hybrid, it changes the cargo floor. This is something I really complained about on the Land Cruiser, and if you notice, we don't have any sort of bump in the floor. You can see this is completely flat. If I fold the seats down, they are going to go flat as well, and that is because there's no hybrid battery. On the Land Cruiser, you've got a hybrid battery that takes up a bit of floor space, and it means you don't get a flat load floor, and I think that is just kind of a crucial omission. So this one is going to be a little more practical, and if you want a third row of seats on some trims of the GX, you can indeed have that third row. Now, the rest of the benefits of the GX, I think, come mostly in the driving, so it's a little cold and windy here. Let's just get right in behind the wheel and hop to it. So first things first, with the new GX, we're gonna talk about this engine, and all I'm gonna do is floor it and show you what I mean. I think that says enough on its own, especially if you've driven the new Land Cruiser separately, because that was me working this as hard as it wants to work. However, in day-to-day driving, this is nice and calm. It's under-stressed, and that is a point that many other journalists have made. Jason Camisa did an incredible video on the Land Cruiser and its heritage, and ultimately how he believes the GX is a more true representation of what the Land Cruiser name should be, because it is kind of overbuilt, under-stressed, that sort of thing, and this is kind of that. Ooh, hey, prior gen GX. So, also, prior gen GX is in my sights here. It's important to note, these are all Prados. These are not the full Land Cruiser wagons that we have traditionally received. If you want one of those, Lexus will sell you one as the Lexus LX. So this has always been a touch, I'd say smaller, but it's really physically almost the same size. It's the interior packaging that's slightly different. But as far as what these are built to be and what they're not to be, the LX is going to still be a bit more of everything, and it's built for technically a longer service life between major rebuilds compared to the GX, but this still feels substantially more substantial, if you will, than the Land Cruiser. And that starts with the drivetrain. I like this V6 far more than the hybrid drivetrain in the Land Cruiser. And I don't mind the hybrid drivetrain because it's gonna be in the 4Runner. The 4Runner is just about on sale, and you can have that with a 2.4 liter Turbo 4 or the Turbo 4 hybrid system that's in the Cruiser. And it works at that price point. This works at this price point, and price is something we're gonna come back to in just a second, but more on driving before I forget all of my thoughts. So, love the drivetrain. The suspension, the ride quality, this is to me, far better than the Land Cruiser was when I had that a few months ago. Keeping in mind, this one is the Overtrail Plus on those all-terrain tires, so they're gonna have a bigger sidewall than something with a bigger wheel like you would get on the luxury or premium variants of this car. But either way, you're gonna have a more refined suspension setup. I think it handles body movement a little bit better, and it just seems to ride a touch better than the Land Cruiser does. Otherwise, steering, braking, that all feels great. And then the rest of this, you know, vibe-wise, that's something I said I loved about the Land Cruiser, and I just adore it here too. This is, it's real vibey. And, you know, a lot of cars are emotional purchases. This is gonna be an emotional purchase, whether you think you're a rational buyer or not. And I say that because when you are behind the wheel, you've got a fabulous driving position, very commanding. You've got a nice clear view out over the hood. It feels, and I said this with the Land Cruiser, it feels like my old L322 Range Rover. You've got just a great view out. You know exactly where the edges of the vehicle are with the bumps on the edges of the hood. You've got a perfect window line height to rest your arm out the window and look very, very cool, which is always important while you're driving. And then the rest of the interior in here, this is different than the Land Cruiser. It feels a little more premium. The material's a little bit better. The layout is something I like a little bit more. And now we're gonna come to price, because this does all matter with price. So this one is a fully loaded Overtrail Plus that costs about $82,000. However, you can get a regular Overtrail that is still plenty well equipped, plenty of off-road hardware bits on it, or you can get a premium trim that is very well equipped and just more street focused than this Overtrail, both for low $70,000 range. And where that becomes a bit of a challenge is for Miss Land Cruiser, because a fully loaded Land Cruiser is like $70,000. So when you get to that crossover point, haha, these are not crossovers. When you get to that crossover point for the not crossover vehicle, it's the same platform, and I think this is the better drivetrain. And frankly, with that hybrid battery not back there, it's better packaging. I really, that goes a long way. That was my single biggest gripe with the Cruiser, and this wins out. And where I say this makes this all awkward for the Land Cruiser, now that the 4Runner's on sale, that's gonna be on the same platform, very similar dimensions. It's got a little more ground clearance, if I'm remembering correctly, similar to better off-road chops depending on which trim level you purchase. And that's gonna undercut the Land Cruiser by a good bit price-wise. Now granted, the more basic 4Runners are not gonna be hybrids, but still, the hybrid system is kind of hit or miss if you think it's adding benefit to your experience or not. The fuel economy gains are kind of marginal to me at best, based on my experience. But point being, I think if you're already willing to spend 65 to 70 grand on a Land Cruiser, you kind of owe it to yourself to go look at one of these, because this is the better one. This is fantastic. And it solves all the gripes I have with the Land Cruiser. And I mean, and really you're gonna buy this for the vibes, whether you're looking at this or a Defender, or if you spend, well, more than double the money, a G-Wagon or a Wrangler or a Bronco, like anything that is, you know, off-road capable, but also sends a message that I'm not like the other moms, I'm a cool mom. You know, you're deliberately not buying a Lexus TX or RX. You're buying a GX because of what it says about you. Cars are drag. And whether you ever take this off-road or not, this says something, and it's cool. It is outwardly tremendously cool, as is the Land Cruiser. But if you're gonna spend the money, this is the better one, and it all comes down to the drivetrain and the packaging. So those are my very quick thoughts on the 2024 Lexus GX 550. For 2025, they've got a few small tweaks. They all ride a touch higher, and otherwise it should be more or less the same thoughts there. Now, these can tow more than the equivalent Land Cruiser. They can tow up to 9,000 pounds and change. We will be testing that out at a later date when I've got a reason to tow something. Right now, I unfortunately don't. I'm in the middle of some different events, and this is just me bopping around, beat booping through the city. And regardless, that's what most people are gonna do with these most of the time, and this is better than the Land Cruiser at serving that purpose. So more to come on the towing part. Thank you so much for coming along. As always, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, stay safe, be well. See you soon.